Entitled Sil abused my cop brother to a point of ending himself, so he left her. Now she falsely claimed he sawed, assaulted, and tried ending her baby. Then she married the investigative lead who hates my brother, and both twisted the story to put him behind bars. But that B-Sil shared her every abuse on Snapchat to feel good, which ended up ruining her life and saving my brother's. I've sister been sitting on this post for a while due to feeling completely helpless against toxic people and a corrupt system. What will typing this out hurt though? Maybe someone who can help or offer solid insight will see this. At the very least, letting this out is cheaper than a $150 therapy session. Bottom line, my brother burned some professional bridges during his time as a cop, and his narcissistic former wife is using that to her advantage by trying to destroy his life with baseless allegations. My brother was arrested almost 2 years ago after slapping his then wife and threatening to kill himself in a drunken episode. The articles claim a lot more happened, but of course these claims are preceded with the term alleged, and there is no evidence for any claim besides police photos of a slap mark. Fun fact, you can print whatever you want if you put the word allegedly next to it. The woman who begged him to marry her 4 months after meeting to prove his love then decided to claim after his DV arrest that he sawed her and attempted to kill her over a dozen times before and throughout their short-lived marriage. Astonishingly, she didn't document these harrowing incidents, but was able to produce exact dates of these 10+ alleged incidents just from memory alone. Innocent until proven guilty, you say? Lol. During his time as an officer, my brother had personal tiffs with the D, who is on this case, and with 2 former friends at the police agency who arrested him, which I believe is why this has been blown totally out of proportion, and he has been subjected to an unusual level of scrutiny. The Leos who hate him directed info to the newspapers, and they made sure to completely tarnish his reputation by listing every unproven allegation in great detail. I can't help but notice that is highly uncommon for initial articles about an arrest. Usually it's kept brief because, well, a presumption of innocence until proven otherwise is thought to be a human right. They have pushed back my brother's trial multiple times, withheld his phone from legal rep for over a year, and claimed to have no prior knowledge of him before his arrest. He's been in jail for close to 2 years now with no movement at all. Weirdly enough, after the DV incident, he and his wife went out for breakfast the following morning as if everything was normal. That day, after their breakfast, my brother quickly packed some stuff and decided to leave his wife. I gave him a ride to pick up his other belongings that afternoon. He went to work, and that was the last I saw of him. His ex was manipulative and controlling, constantly triggering his PTSD and insecurities for laughs. Allegedly, she chased him with a knife and threatened to cut off his genitals because of his promiscuous past. That was a big trigger for her, and I think she carried a lot of resentment and jealousy over that. Also, allegedly, she anally sawed him with a breadstick in his sleep and posted about it on Snapchat the following morning. My brother was trapped and miserable with her. She was charming at first, as they all are. Within months of meeting her, he sold his house she told him to, because he had sex with other women in that home, paid her a year's rent in advance, gave her thousands of dollars for groceries, and whatever else, even though she claims to be a millionaire. She didn't allow him to communicate with women, and would constantly stalk him at work. She has IT training, and managed to get into his police computer database. Dude had enough. She said that she'd ruin his life if he left her, but he walked out regardless. That's when the cops were called. At first it was the slap. Then she started alleging everything else under the sun. Of course his former cop friends and fragile ego D lapped it up. His ex had all of his social media passwords and started scrubbing damning evidence against her soon after his arrest. Unfortunately, I couldn't catch the Facebook stuff she removed, but I do have dozens of login dates and times attached to her phone. She took a bunch of screenshots of his Snapchat messages with friends and then scrubbed it completely. Hopefully that data is retrievable because his Snapchat is littered with stuff that will get those SA claims laughed out of court. She wasn't shy about making videos about and discussing her kink sawed, choking, Shrek, and dress up in socks, sandals, a golf shirt, and shorts like my absent father. My brother has always been a fool when it came to women. He unfortunately had a child with another petty narcissist who is now using this situation to her advantage by harassing our family, keeping our niece away from us, and trying to take his entire VA disability check away from him, so he won't have any income after this laughable and not happening, but still so pathetic. His exes, who once hated each other, are now ganging up and have been harassing my family and doing a lot of social media trash talking. Oddly enough, his wife mustered up the courage to trust and love another man again, and is now engaged to someone she started dating a few months ago. And guess what? He is a cop who works for the department that arrested my brother. Everyone in his circle knows what a joke and injustice this whole situation is. He is still sitting in jail. They've been doing everything in their power to make him miserable and get him to break, but he's handling this remarkably well. As my brother was booked in jail, the DO warned the corrections officer that he's a psychopath like Hannibal Lecter. He was mistreated and threatened constantly by other inmates until they actually got to know him. He is well liked and respected there, at least. I want everyone to know that he is a man of character who reached a breaking point, and that his ex is a con artist. Maybe they will find out during the trial. But I'm sick of waiting. We want to live, laugh, and litigate once he's out. I was never close with my brother until this. We have two distinctly different personalities, and just didn't vibe growing up. I know him, though, and it is breaking my heart watching this all go down. He has combat-related physical and mental health issues that are not being treated. He's a tough guy, but how much bullshit can one take? He has a ton of support from family and friends, but strangers don't have that insider perspective that we do. It's honestly surreal. With all that said, what can I do? I feel powerless. He has a decent lawyer, but communications are sparse. As a family, we have poured at least $50,000 on this nonsense, using our savings, retirement funds, and taking out loans. How can I help my brother, my family, and myself know that there will be a light after the tunnel here? Part of me wants to make a Facebook page, spill some tea publicly, or just let nature take its course. I'm just tired of being quiet because, to some, silence is equals to acknowledgement of guilt, when, truthfully, my silence is equals to depression, exhaustion, and fear of pushback from dirtbags in power, and narcissists with no jobs, no fulfilling personal lives, and no limit when it comes to harassing others. Feel free to ask any questions and offer insight. There is still plenty of tea in my kettle, believe it or not. Thanks for reading. Update. I made a post a couple of weeks ago about my brother being falsely accused of over a dozen violent attacks when he left his narcissist wife after a domestic violence incident. The other day they had a jury selection hearing, and we didn't realize it would end up leading to a massive chunk of his charges being dismissed. Thankfully, my brother's attorney had damning phone records on hand and walked right up to the judge and showed her everything. He also notified her that his ex-wife is now engaged to a state trooper involved in the investigation. The judge was having none of it, and the crooked da realized she dug a really deep hole and started saying, let's settle, in a panic. He went from over 15 charges to 4. All's ex-related charges dropped. He had to plead to a couple things he didn't want to. But by taking this deal, he will be out of there and back home soon. Plus, he won't go to trial. The DA read his ex-wife's victim statement for her, which basically just said, I found a real man now. Over 150 people were there to witness this glorious moment. I wish I was one of them. I heard all about it, though, and I am so glad their game was put to an embarrassing end. The DA dictates information to our local paper and tried to spin this one really well. Her explanation was, the victim wants to close the door on this and never look back. They asked for me to make a plea deal so they won't have to go through a trial. Seriously. So he went from 12 charges, one of them with a penalty of 30+ years, to another 9 months in jail, and it's a win in their eyes. It's probably a hopeless cause, but a few of his friends and I emailed the author of the article that was posted and gave him some key information that was oddly left out. I will be getting my brother's phone back soon and will not hesitate to use it to defend my brother. I made him a GoFundMe if anyone is interested. PM me if you want to donate or just to read the page and see some pics of my brother. Thanks for the support, everyone. I got your back too. Update on RMN's rights. Brother falsely accused of SAW by his ex. Charges dropped after they were disputed, but his reputation is ruined. What to do? This is a big one, and I'll try to sum it up as simply as I can. For more info, I have some previous posts on my profile if you want to check them out. Basically, my brother was a cop for 10 years. During his time as a cop, he made some poor decisions that would later haunt him. He angered the DA by calling her out on specifics of a case, and he poed multiple state police officers because he slept with one of their wives. Dumb, but he wasn't the only one in that group who had a turn with her. My brother rushed into a relationship and marriage with a woman he met on a dating app. Things moved quickly. He sold his house she told him to because he slept with other women there, gave her over $10,000 for future expenses, and ended up marrying her within 6 months. She is attractive, highly sexual, and perfect bait for a man in heat. Things went way downhill once they were married. She became more controlling and abusive and demanded more from him. She resented the fact that he had an extensive sexual history because she is deeply insecure. He was cut off from friends, particularly female ones, and family. And she stalked his every move and impersonated local women to add his ex's private social media profiles and stalk. I'm looking forward to reading all of the texts because what I've seen so far is psychotic. Things came to a blow one night when they had an argument. My brother got drunk, slapped her, and put a gun to his head. His PTSD had been untreated and elevated at that point, and she liked to trigger it. He cooled off, and the next morning they got breakfast as if nothing happened. My brother decided that he reached his breaking point with her and had to leave. He packed his things and left her house of horrors. She called the police and initially claimed that he hit her until her jaw moved out of place and that he tried to shoot her and his sleeping child. However, the specifics of the story kept changing. Later on, she claimed that he had been roping her constantly and threatening her with weapons over the entire course of their relationship. 12 more charges were added on. State police arrested him, and the DA took on the case. This is an important part to remember. My brother knew that his phone would save him from most of these charges, especially the sex-related ones. His phone was littered with frequent sexual requests, fantasies, and the like. She was constantly abusing him, threatening him, and berating him through text as well. He also had a lot of helpful data on Snapchat and Facebook, but she logged into those accounts and scrubbed everything. The state held his phone from him for over a year despite repeated requests. Finally, a few weeks before the projected trial date, they handed over the phone with partial data. His side questioned why only part of the data was pulled, and they said, "We can get the rest and delay trial or proceed with what we have." They decided to get all the data. I'm not sure when it began, but his ex started seeing the officer in charge of the investigation. After they went public, they got engaged, and he left his wife. The pattern begins. At this point, my brother had been sitting in jail for about a year and a half with very little movement. He finally had a jury selection hearing scheduled. Jury selection came, and it was a catastrophe for the prosecution. His attorney presented the judge with my brother's phone, and with the fact that his ex had been seeing the lead of the investigation. The judge was having none of it. She was appalled, and the state had no choice but to drop all 12 charges. My brother took a plea deal, which gave him 3 years behind bars total. He made the mistake of admitting to what he actually did in interviews and decided to plead to 2 additional allegations that weren't true. He and his lawyer decided to go for the deal. It would get him out of jail, and he wouldn't have to worry about the risk of a jury trial. When this all started, his ex-wife started rounding up all of his ex-girlfriends and friends he had and started trash-talking him. Some of his friends turned against him. The mother of his child has always been bitter toward my brother and used this opportunity to take his daughter away from him and isolate her from my family. She went to court and demanded more child support. His ex and baby mama harassed our family. They showed up at my parents' house uninvited and demanded that they give them his daughter's toys. We didn't want to deal with the BS, so we just gave them the toys that my brother paid for. That wasn't enough. She wasted low-income legal resources to get an attorney to badger my mom about this even more because she didn't get all the toys. She wanted my old dolls from the 1990s that my niece played with when she visited. We sent a firm response, and that was the end of that. His ex-wife is constantly around his daughter now and parades her around on social media, even though when they were together, she resented the kid for taking attention away from her and never posted a thing about her. Her victim statement in court was basically, "I found a real man, and we will have a happy life with my kids and your daughter." After the hearing, the DA made her statements in the paper and spun the situation around completely. She said that the victims asked for a plea deal so they wouldn't be re-traumatized by a trial. Sure, he was going to face 30+ years if found guilty. She omitted many key facts. When the judge was presented with evidence of the accuser's lies, the DA panicked and said, let's settle. Over 150 people witnessed it. My brother's reputation has been tarnished. All stories about this situation from beginning to end have been dictated by the state police and the DA's office. These articles made the front page, were extremely detailed, and had a lot of allegedly. People were really upset, believed it all, and thought he was a psychotic monster, and the DA made that argument during every hearing. Oddly enough, only one news outlet reported on the recent fact that all his ex charges were dropped. Anyway, I don't know what to do. The investigation was botched from the beginning. I'm going to get all of the records from this case and pick up my brother's cell phone. Should I share the info online? Should I contact a news outlet? I don't want these people to get away with this. As a part of his plea deal, he cannot speak publicly about the case, and he can't sue the DA or state police. Convenient. Hate to end on this note, but I made a GoFundMe for my brother. This cost our family over $50,000, and we are wiped out entirely. I want my brother to have a cushion when he finally comes home. He has to start over completely. He sold his house, his new truck was repossessed, he blew all his money, and basically all of his VA checks went to child support. He has to fight to get his daughter back. It's a long road ahead for him. He has plenty of friends and family by his side, though. Let me know if you want the link for any reason. You can read what I wrote, chip in, or just see some pictures of the guy. I feel so bad for him. He's going to crash with me when he gets out. Thanks for your time. Please share any ideas or thoughts you may have. I want this unjust situation exposed.